morning, everyone. Welcome to Outreach's Cultural Access Forum and Exchange 2022 season and our kickoff presentation, Play by Play, guiding organizations through audio description services for blind and low vision patrons. Thank you for being with us and supporting us through your donations. My name is Charlie Miller. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Outreach. My pronouns are he, his, and a quick verbal description of myself. I'm a white male in my early 40s with medium brown hair, hazel eyes, and a pretty decent beard on my face. For those of you who are with us for the first time, Outreach is a nonprofit organization based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we create, advocate for, and expand accessible opportunities so the full spectrum of society is served. We join together in acknowledging the Lenape Nation, on whose traditional territory Outreach is settled. We acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land and seek to build more awareness and steward this relationship to the territory as settlers. I'm also joined by my Outreach colleagues assisting with tech, Katie Sampson, Alex Boyle, and John Orr. We are joined today with the card captioner provided by Caption Access. To view captions, select the CC icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen. A link to open these captions in a separate browser will also be posted in chat. Should you wish to ask a question during the question and answer portion of today's webinar, you may use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can also click the raise your hand button in your lower screen and you can unmute yourself to voice your question. If you're calling in and would like to ask a question, you press *9 on your phone and that will also raise your hand. Please use the chat feature for tech or accessibility questions. This session will be recorded and posted for future viewing. Each of our panelists today have been invited to guide us through their process and role in bringing audio description into being. Each panelist will spend approximately 15 minutes giving us an overview and take us through the steps or play-by-play. I think when we drafted this copy, we had more optimism, sports optimism, in our heads, and the Philadelphia Eagles were going to go further in the playoffs. That obviously didn't happen. We're going to begin with the voice of Philadelphia audio description, Nicole Sardella. Nicole has been doing audio description for Outreach for over 10 years. Nicole is the prime audio describer for Broadway Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Flower Show. She also participates in documentary work and has actually increased the amount of audio description that she's been doing during the pandemic because of the digital offerings of most of our arts partners. We'll also be joined by the amazing team from Opera Philadelphia and also our new friend Johan from Live Voice, which is this amazing app that Outreach has been using for audio description. So without further ado, let's bring Nicole to the Zoom room and hear about her experience as our tested and true audio describer.
Thank you so much, Charlie. So I'm going to share my screen. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to Outreach for having me for the last 10 years and for making this presentation happen. As Charlie said, my name is Nicole Sardella, and I am an audio describer. My first slide here is a title slide. About 3/4 of the top of the slide is a blue-green color. The bottom quarter is white with a black font in Atkins Hyper Legible that says audio description on the left and my name, Nicole Sardella, on the right. This, as I advance to the next slide, this slide includes an image for the top 3 quarters. It's an image from the 2021 Philadelphia Flower Show. I am audio describing to a group that's around me of 4 patrons. Some of them are wearing masks. One of the patrons has a white cane that's visible, and there are some magenta flowers in the foreground of the image. So as Charlie mentioned, my name is Nicole Sardella. I am a 31-year-old white woman with dark blonde hair that gets lighter at the edges, that reaches just past my shoulders. It's wavy. Today I'm wearing a black sweater and I have 2 gold necklaces on. I wanted to start by, I apologize, I use she, her pronouns. I wanted to start by giving you a little bit of background about kind of how I got here and my own story about how I came to audio description and how I have been practicing this work for 10 years. So I started interning at Outreach in 2010, and I haven't stopped. The work has changed since I started as an intern, but in about 2012, 2011, I got a call from one of the staff members at Outreach who asked if I would be interested in getting trained in audio description. And at the time, I was a English major, a communication major, and a minorship in leadership and global understanding, and with a love for theater arts. And I was so passionate about the work that I was doing interning at Outreach, so I said yes. I got trained in, I would say, February of 2012 rather, and then described my first show in July, and I've been doing this work kind of ever since. Over the past 10 years, it has been a great privilege to see how audio description has grown and changed first in my own practice, of course, but also in the reach of audio description and in the world of what has been possible. We due in large part to the work and the commitment from both Outreach and member organizations and arts organizations. Even just in terms of the amount of work and in terms of the depth and scope of work that has been provided, which I will talk about later in my presentation, and with the great team at Opera Philadelphia. As I advance to the next slide, this is the same 3/4, 1/4 split of the slide. The top is an image from the 2020 flower show. There is a yellow wall along the left side of the image. I'm in the background touching the wall, holding a purple notebook and folded pieces of white paper. And then there are 2 people in the foreground of the image closer to the front, and one of them is holding a white cane. The bottom of the slide reads AD process, preparation for live, in-person, and recording. So I want to talk to you also about what goes into my work as an audio describer. The key to what I think is successful audio description, high quality audio description, is preparation and a deep understanding of whatever the medium is that's being described. It's so important, I think, to understand what the medium is about, so that I do description extemporaneously, so that I can describe without a script. And I should have mentioned my cat Marty, a 1-year-old black cat, just hopped up on my desk with me. But In terms of the preparation for audio description, no matter if it's in person or recorded, the general preparation is the same in terms of reviewing the piece or the medium several times, many times, to gain a deeper understanding of what is essential, what are the essential visual elements of this piece, what is maybe not as essential, or what is good to know, or versus what really is the most important part. So that would include seeing the performance, if it's a performance, visiting the gallery, if it's a gallery, if it's a piece that is recorded, watching it several times. In person, I take notes on each piece. Then, because I'm not an expert in anything, that always requires a lot of research for me. So researching, maybe for one piece, it's specific names of costuming. Maybe for another piece, it's a style of dance. Maybe for another, it's a type of flower or plant. It really is a wide variety. Once I've done the research, then I start to put together the description or notes. So for a performance, like whether it's live or recorded, my ideal situation is to be able to provide pre-show notes or pre-performance notes, notes on audio description prior to the performance itself, so that when the performance is actually occurring, I'm describing solely the actions on stage versus describing all that background information. I like to be able to, focus on what is exactly going on stage. And then the description happens. So for something that's live in person, of course, it occurs live in person, but sometimes that means through an AD transmitter and headsets. Sometimes that means through an app like Live Voice. Sometimes it means just speaking to a group of people. It really depends on the specifics of the event or the performance. And for something that is recorded, that means I close myself into my closet, get my headphones, my mic, and start recording. And when I record, I still describe extemporaneously, because that is how my brain thinks and how I've been doing this work for 10 years. But some people also will write their descriptions and then read them. But to me, it's just how my brain works and how I work when I'm describing, to do the extemporaneous description. And in terms of the next slide, this is a slide with an image of 6 patrons of the flower show, in groups of 2, and some of the patrons are using white canes, and some of the patrons are guides. At the bottom of the slide are the words AD partnerships and implementing AD. So, as I have talked about a little bit, the process of audio description is really in depth. It requires a lot of preparation, and it, I think, is only improved when I'm able to work closely with an organization. And I say this because, as I said, I'm not an expert in the things that I describe. I have, of course, some background, but there's so much that the staff at organizations know and understand and can provide even more robust audio description experience for blind and low vision patrons. I think that the more support from the organization and the more commitment, the better that audio description works, even in terms of the day, as an example, I should say, the day of the event, having the staff trained in assisting people who are blind or low vision by, for example, being a guide. So having that commitment from the organization, I think, really truly benefits the people that are using audio description, the blind or low vision community, and it benefits the organization as well. So the process for audio description, I would say, like how it happens kind of the day of. If there's a live event, I will meet the blind or low vision patrons who are using audio description ahead of the show or the performance or the exhibit or whatever it may be. If we're using any type of technology, whether it's the transmitters or live voice, I'll explain, if people are not familiar, of course, I'll explain how to use the technology, what to do if they have any issues, whether that's giving my phone number or providing them with sort of whoever is the on-site person to assist them, whether it's staff or another person. And then we kind of go through the description. For recorded audio description, once I'm out of my recording studio / closet, I've started to provide the MP3 files or WAV or WAV files to the organizations. I just have a page on my website and you can download the file directly from there. I found that was easier than sending batches of files. And then the organizations, which we'll talk about with Opera Philadelphia, will work to put together the audio file and the video file and make the audio description file. I'm definitely not a technology expert in terms of that. I know what I do, which is the MP3 of audio description. And I know the Opera Philadelphia staff will talk more about that. And because of these partnerships with organizations, I would say specifically over the last year and a half, so many things have become possible that I could only have dreamed of 10 years ago. So I want to talk about expanding the reach of audio description services and thinking beyond providing audio description only. So this slide is an image from the 2021 Flower Show. I'm near the center of the image, and there is a woman who is blind reaching toward, I called it an orange feather boa, essentially, of ferns, leaves, and other plants that were spray painted orange. And then there's the AD partnerships and expanding AD at the bottom of the screen. Over the last 10 years, as I said, the commitment to accessibility and to audio description from arts organizations and from Outreach has created even more robust audio description offerings. And all of these expansions and changes in audio description were guided by feedback from the blind, low vision community, because what is so important to me as an audio describer is really hearing what people who are using the service, people who are blind or low vision, are saying and incorporating that into my own work. It has shaped my work as an audio describer. It has been pivotal and instrumental in the audio description that I do. And I think that the phrase "nothing about us without us" really informs and guides my work as an audio describer. So in all of that, we've thought about, myself, Outreach, and the arts organizations have thought about what that looks like. So in the past, I would say year and a half to 2 years, there have been so many different and unique ways, I think, of incorporating audio description. So the first one example is I called it audio description for all. I don't know if we officially came up with a name, but for or maybe immersive audio description, but for the ballet, no one needed to use a headset because I was providing live audio description through the speakers of the theater. So everyone could hear the audio description live as it was occurring. Audio description has gone outside at Longwood Gardens, at the Philadelphia Flower Show, specifically there using live voice to stream the audio description. And in addition to the Longwood exhibit, all of the descriptions were posted online so that people could explore the space and the exhibit at their own pace and their own time, and whatever exhibits they want to listen to, they can listen to. We have worked with theaters to do more sensory tours with touch components of key props. The beginning of the flower show, we did about 10 minutes of describing specific plants and passing them around so that people could experience them in a way that was closer up, touch them, smell them, however people want to interact with the flowers. And then we have also done sensory tours where actors will self-describe, so their physical appearance in their normal speaking voice, and then they will say several lines as their character, so that when that person is on stage, the audience, the people who are blind or low vision who have done the sensory tour have the already know what that person's voice sounds like. One thing that is important to me as a describer is to, whenever possible, communicate with the actors to have them provide their own self-descriptions so that I can identify them the way that they would like to be identified. And I think that has been something that is from the partnerships with the theaters and other arts organizations. And one part that I think has been really exciting for me was at the Wilma, we're calling them audio headshots, where the actors actually, in this particular performance, played, oh my gosh, 9 roles, probably, maybe less. But so they played all of these different roles, but of course the actors remain the same. So the cast recorded these audio headshots where they verbally described themselves in their own voice. And we added those to the pre-show notes as well, or the notes on audio description. And at Opera Philadelphia, we have been pre-recording all of the notes on audio description and posting them on the website on SoundCloud so that people can access them on the go whenever, prior to the performance, if maybe they're running late or want to know in advance. And now it's not just one version of notes. We provide multiple versions of notes. The concise notes, I would say, that are maybe 2 to 5 minutes, and then the comprehensive notes that are longer, maybe 7 to 10 minutes, that really go into depth and detail about the sets, costumes, characters, plot, so that people can choose, what they're looking for, and also providing the lyrics to the performances so that, which was all of these services were directly from feedback of blind low vision audience members who asked for these things to be provided, and we're able to provide them because of these partnerships. And so I hope that this information has been helpful and useful, and I probably definitely went over my time, but I'm just going to advance to the next slide.
Lindsay is a Black male with dark skin.
Oh, sorry, I had some of the audio headshots there. This is my contact information. On the next slide, my email is nicole@audiodescriber.com. My website is audiodescriber.com, and my Instagram is @audiodescriber.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you. Nicole, are you able to stop sharing your screen? We'll give everybody your information as well in the chat.
Thanks, of course. I apologize about that.
You're fine. Stop. You're fine. Thank you, Nicole. It's been awesome. Just hearing a little bit more about your process and how you interact with our community and our arts partners. So thank you for that. Next up is we have Veronica Chapman-Smith and Stephen Humes, who are two of our amazing partners at Opera Philadelphia. And I just want to say Opera Philadelphia really during the pandemic went from 0 to 60 when it comes to accessibility. They've just been doing amazing work and always actually now coming to us and asking us, did we do enough? Did we do enough accessibility wise? Which doesn't happen very often with our arts partners who come and ask us if they're doing enough. So it's just been like a complete joy to work with two people who are just uber committed to the work that we do at Our Reach and are really even asking questions that are pushing the boundaries of what Our Reach understands accessibility to be. So without further ado, Veronica and Stephen from Opera Philadelphia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Veronica Chapman-Smith. I'm the Vice President of Community Initiatives here at Opera Philadelphia. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a medium-skinned female presenting Black person wearing dark-rimmed glasses. I currently have my hair in long braids with several gold clips down the left front side of my head. Today I am wearing a tan polka dot dress with a black sweater and a white flowy scarf. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of audio descriptions, my colleague Stephen and I thought it might be helpful for people to know a little bit about Opera Philadelphia's journey to establishing an audio description practice. In October 2020, the Opera Philadelphia channel began. The channel is our digital performing space. The channel houses recorded stage productions, operas that are conceived and produced like films, as well as auxiliary programming such as roundtable discussions and behind-the-scene videos. During the early days of the channel, Stephen actually approached me with an idea of starting an audio description practice at Opera Philadelphia. After that conversation, Stephen and I decided we needed a little bit more information, and so we reached out to Charlie Miller at Artreach. Charlie met with us in like late October we hoped to get a better understanding of what the audio description practice would look like, the financial implications for us starting one. During this conversation, what we learned was that the financial cost was not that great. It was within Opera Philadelphia's means, and that audio descriptions offered a great point of access for people of the blind and low vision community and beyond. Due to like the COVID-19 restrictions of us all being kind of hunkered down during 2020, there was some space within the community initiatives budget to support audio descriptions. So I wrote it into the budget. We had our financial costs covered, but we weren't sure about what the lift of the creation of audio descriptions would be. So Charlie suggested that we meet with the amazing Nicole Sardella, who you just heard from, to learn a little bit more about like the logistical lift of audio description practice, and for Stephen and I to better understand like the people power necessary for implementation. We met with Nicole like the next month, like in November. And during that meeting, Stephen and I began to realize that audio description creation was a lift that Opera Philadelphia could handle. And Stephen began working with our other colleague, Shannon Evelyn, who is Opera Philadelphia's Director of Content, and Nicole on our first audio described digital offerings. From about November to April, the team worked to create the audio description version of Soldier Songs, along with several other productions that were later released that season. The first audio description production, Soldier Songs, was released on the Opera Philadelphia channel, April 2021. It took a while for us to produce the first one. There weren't a lot of opera companies offering audio descriptions as part of their practice, so we really didn't have a model to follow. So we were learning as we went. Since then, we've been able to reduce the time for creation of audio descriptions to about a month. Stephen will talk more about that in depth, about implementation in the next part of presentation. This next slide shows 6 of Opera Philadelphia's audio described offerings for both digital and in-person productions. The 6 thumbnail pictures are of La Traviata, Cycles of My Being, Soldier Songs, Oedipus Rex and Lilacs, Rigoletto, and Vocal Fireworks productions. There are a few things that I consider when budgeting for audio descriptions at Opera Philadelphia. The creation of audio descriptions is a line item, like I said, in the community initiatives budget. It is not contingent on finding funding, which is our commitment to providing accessibility in this area. I think it's important for Opera Philadelphia to be prepared to offer audio descriptions for the entire season it produces. So I look at the entire season, both in person and digital, to find the cost footprint. For us, because of our hybrid nature, our season usually means about 3 main stage productions, 2 digital commissions, and then I have what I call placeholders for surprises. Things that I hadn't thought of in the budgeting process that might come up that would require audio description support. I want to ensure that we are able to have the capacity to handle any unforeseen costs, and making sure that we're giving a full experience for people who require or would like to engage in our audio description practice. The estimated costs for each of our productions or the creation of audio descriptions is around $600. So for this season, I budgeted around a little over $4,000. The past audio description offerings From Opera Philadelphia are Love in the Park and The Island We Made. I only say this to give a full picture of the breadth of work that Nicole has done. Current audio description offerings on the Opera Philadelphia channel are Soldier Songs, La Voix Humaine, Cycles of My Being, and La Traviata. We are working to add more audio descriptions to the channel and will also offer audio descriptions for our in-person production of Rigoletto in the spring at the Academy of Music. I spoke about this initiative being not funded dependent, and I want to circle back to that a little bit and briefly talk about like how we acquired funding. Since Opera Philadelphia decided to embark on an audio description practice and wrote it into our budget, we reached out to the development department here at Opera Philadelphia and began searching for funding. At the time, we had a manager of institutional giving who did some research and applied for funding through PICO. PICO had been a longstanding funder and directed funds towards increased arts access through our Opera on the Mall initiative. When we were no longer doing Opera on the Mall program, we decided that another avenue, tried other avenues of appeal to them and submitted an application for our audio description practice for the Opera Philadelphia channel. PICO has supported our audio description practice for the past 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, and we are very grateful for their support. The cost that I spoke about earlier does not include person power. This is purely the creation of the audio descriptions, and I guess that does include Nicole's person power and Art Beach's person power, but the person power of implementation within Opera Philadelphia space. So the work time or person power part of that equation is actually housed in our marketing and communications budget. The manager of audience development, my colleague who's joining me on this call, Stephen Humes, and the content director, Shannon Evelyn, take care of the implementation. Stephen manages the logistical lift of the Opera Philadelphia audio description practice, and I will pass this over to him to speak more about that.
Thanks, Veronica. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Humes. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a white man in my 30s with parted brown hair and brown eyes. Today, I'm wearing a blue navy button-down shirt. It is such a pleasure to be a part of today's event, and I'm so excited to share so much about this learning process over the past 2 years. As Veronica mentioned, Opera Philadelphia's audio description practice began with a recorded digital performance of the opera Soldier Songs, as opposed to a live in-person offering. During the pandemic, the Opera Philadelphia channel, or operaphila.tv, advance the next slide, really became our primary stage and way of connecting with audiences. Through the channel, opera could be streamed on demand 24/7, and the service continues today. As we began to explore the possibilities for audio description on the Opera Philadelphia channel, we quickly realized that unlike Netflix and Disney Plus, our audience wouldn't be able to turn on audio description with a click of a button or a remote. We learned that it would require us to develop a brand new video for each production. And in many ways, that led us to create an accessible experience unique to each individual opera. Today, we'd like to share one example of an audio described performance on the Opera Philadelphia channel, and in doing so, share the various considerations that went into its development. I'll then share a little bit about how Opera Philadelphia has started to foster relationships around our audio description practice at large. And finally, Veronica will rejoin me and we'll reflect on some of the key takeaways in this very early process for us. The performance we'll be using as an example today is Francis Poulenc's opera La Voix Humaine, or the human voice from French to English. The opera is a monodrama for solo soprano and was filmed cinematically back in 2018 by Opera Philadelphia. Included in this slide here, you'll see a still image from the film in which soprano Patricia Rissette is holding a black telephone in a simple black gown. Her eyes are closed as she presses the phone against her ear. At the very front of this learning and this implementation process for us, I've recognized that audio description is a deeply collaborative process. And because of that, I'd like to welcome Nicole Sardella back into the frame, because it wouldn't be without Nicole that we have been able to create not only La Voix Humaine, but so much more. And I'd love to dive into that. I've said to Nicole several times that audio description, I've recognized, is really an art within itself, developing and creating audio that can then really complement what's happening within the opera itself. So, hi, Nicole, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it really is about the preparation and the collaboration. And I know that you've said how important it is to extend that collaborative network as well.
Yes. In opera specifically, as Veronica mentioned, there really isn't a lot of audio description that is going on, and especially in the US. There is some happening internationally, but so when we work together on an opera, there's so much that we think about in terms of what will the audio description ultimately look like. And there's also another element to audio describing opera that I hadn't worked with before, which is many of the operas that we've worked on are not sung in English. And so finding a strategy for summarizing text translation and also describing the actions that are occurring and any other visual components, in addition to oftentimes song titles, character names that are in Italian or French, really does work best when you're able to collaborate.
Yes. And we've also engaged together in this work in conversation with people who are blind or low vision, and that has really influenced the design of the audio description in person and in our digital season. And we really believe in maintaining those relationships long term and compensating those individuals when possible. So I'm going to play for everyone now just an audio clip, no visual, but just audio from the trailer for La Voix Humaine. And as this plays, it's mostly music, atmospheric, orchestral music, with just a few French lines sung towards the end. As you listen to this, what are you able to gain, and what are you gaining in terms of information?
sommes plusieurs sur la ligne, raccrochez. Vous êtes avec des abonnés. Mais madame, raccrochez vous-même. Allô, mademoiselle? Mais non, ce n'est pas le docteur Schmidt. 08, pas 07. Allô? C'est ridicule. On me demande.
Nicole, as you recall developing the audio description, I'm wondering what might be some of your reactions to this piece, because what we've come to learn is that no two operas, no two pieces, no two events are the same, and developing a strategy for La Voix Humaine is very different than what we did for Cycles of My Being or La Traviata. Nicole, I'm interested to know what you recall as you were preparing the audio description for this performance.
Yes. So one, like Stephen said, every performance in general is different, and every opera has been so different. And in terms of preparation for this particular piece and in general, I watched it several times. And then, so I'm a very retired singer, so I'll get a score so that I can look at the score, understand a little bit more about the music, about the lyrics, how they work together. And in opera specifically, to me, the focus is always on the priority of describing, and the focus is always on the singing and the music. Because, for an example, I never want to speak over singing. And so the clip that Stephen played had quite a bit of just music, but and then transition to some singing up, and that in addition to like the phone ringing. And so thinking about what is being communicated visually in terms of the actions, but then also what is being communicated with singing in French, which in this case, typically there's captions on the screen, and then what is missing. And audio description can provide that information visually through essentially using words. And so typically what we'll do, for this particular performance, I read through all of the translations and kind of summarized them, distilling them to what was essential, and then tried to record those in the space that was available. Doesn't always work. So then distilling them further and trying to figure out how to keep the integrity of the language and the piece while not compromising on the integrity of the music. And so that's kind of how all of this happens. And as I said, I'm not an expert. So what we'll do, and Opera Philadelphia, part of the building in time is to work with people who are blind or low vision, people who are consultants, and provide feedback for us to really understand if the audio description is really working or what's missing, what visual information is, where there are gaps in that information, and how we can further provide a more comprehensive audio description experience, whether it's providing more detailed notes, maybe notes with less detail, and then also for some performances, and depending on the nature of the performance, also providing the lyrics too.
Yeah, what I've taken away is just about how much time is needed in advance of when La Voix Humaine is going to be released, and to really, you said it in your presentation, to invest in the preparation. I studied opera for many years, it's the type of detail that I didn't even really put into my own work on stage. But being really detail-oriented and thinking and anticipating some of the questions and the needs that Nicole might need, whether it be translation or the director's intention to this piece. It's all things that I've learned in the course of this process. So I think it was about 2 months in advance of when La Voix Humaine was released that we began to have conversations about what would be needed to add audio description to this performance. For the sake of time, I'm going to play for everyone now the audio described trailer of that same section we just listened to.
Elle scurries toward the phone, then halts. She turns forward and rests her hands on her stomach as her shoulders rise and fall. Elle turns her head forward, takes a deep breath in, turns back toward the phone. She picks up the handset and turns the dial. She lifts up her head and pushes her shoulders back and slams the headset on the receiver, steps toward the window, stares outward, and leans her head back. She picks up the phone. Several of us are on the line. You're with a subscriber. Hang up. This is not Dr. Schmidt, and this is ridiculous.
Allô, allô? Mais non, madame, nous sommes plusieurs sur la ligne. Raccrochez. Vous êtes avec des abonnés. Mais madame, raccrochez vous-même. Allô, mademoiselle? Mais non, ce n'est pas le docteur Schmidt. 08, pas 07. Allô? C'est ridicule.
Rainbow Opera Philadelphia channel logo, operaphila.tv, 215-732-8400.
In terms of how did we build this on our end, once we really had a plan and a unique strategy set forth. Nicole, you use GarageBand to prepare for your digital audio descriptions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Ooh, I'm muted. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So my audio description recording process has changed from a lavalier mic plugged into my phone to GarageBand using a professional USB mic and headphones, where now I download the clip from, usually it's Dropbox from Opera Philadelphia. I drag it into GarageBand, and then on the screen there's the sound waves, and so I can really precisely line my audio description up to the breaks in sound in terms of singing for opera, and to exactly where I want it to be. Because I think there's the cadences of time are really important to match up where the audio description sort of starts and ends, and making sure for me, as an audio describer, it's very important for me to not speak over dialogue or speak over singing. So it has really evolved over the past year and a half.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten in a better rhythm of how to then take your audio track. And Opera Philadelphia then uses iMovie and Adobe Premiere Pro to develop videos and the complete file. And pictured on this slide is a screenshot from Adobe Premiere Pro video editing software. Within the quadrant of this software, we see a still image from La Voix Humaine, in which the soprano is sitting on a beige couch in a cluttered living room. And surrounding that image are a number of tech dials and buttons that can help influence the overall shape. If this picture looks overwhelming to you, I will say that I found that it's only really required a very beginner level of video editing knowledge to be able to develop what you just saw previously. Audio description is simply just adding a layer of an audio track on top of the existing file. Sure, there might be times where we need to decrease or increase the sound of the production just a tad so that the audio description comes through. But this is all part of, I think, what's really within a lot of people's abilities to create. And then finally, SoundCloud is what Opera Philadelphia uses to publish pre-show notes on Opera Philadelphia's website. And in addition to that, I think it's been important for us to also make sure that our website is screen reader friendly. And so if you go to operaphila.org/AD, you'll be able to access the pre-show notes if they're not already embedded within the first 4 to 5 minutes of the film itself. Nicole, any other thoughts about tech tips for digital implementation?
I only laugh because my other cat, Bernie, once sat on my computer and deleted an hour's worth of recording. So my tip is save multiple file versions so that that doesn't happen to you as well.
Okay, great. So now I'm just going to share a little bit about the audience development and outreach that we've been doing for this work. At the very top, I want to say that I believe that starting an audio description practice begins with a commitment to learning and professional development. All of Opera Philadelphia's staff has had the opportunity to participate in a cultural sensitivity training from Artreach. We have continued, as we said, to be in conversation and working with people who are blind or low vision to influence this development. And we also, here in Philadelphia, have a wonderful organization, Associated Services for the Blind. And I have had the opportunity of, with Veronica to foster that relationship and to attend professional development. Recently, one was offered by Lynn Heights, which was wonderful. We want to foster long-term relationships with community partners. This isn't just for one production, it's for our whole season, it's for next season and the season after that as well. And those relationships, including Associated Services for the Blind, include Overbrook Education Center, which is a school in Philadelphia that has a large population who are blind and low vision. We look forward to extending and continuing those relationships, and also as we emerge out of this pandemic, increasing our in-person offerings as well as what we're doing here digitally. Another important step for us has been joining Artreach's Access Card program. We really recognize the importance of this program and are pleased to be able to extend up to 4 $2 tickets to any in-person performance and also $2 rentals to anything on the channel. We recognize that it's important and imperative to be mindful of the full scope of inclusion, and this is a wonderful way for that. And then the last bullet here I have on this slide, it says incorporate audio description into your company's full marketing and communication strategy. We want to communicate this work broadly. And as a result, we've sent out a number of emails to our full database, updating them on the progress of audio description and what to expect coming forward. We've also made a concerted effort to communicate in every email we send, no matter if it's for audio description and to communicate those news and updates. We communicate that Opera Philadelphia welcomes guests with disabilities, and we're prepared to attend to any of the needs or the accommodations that are extend beyond audio description as well. Utilizing the accessibility icon system has been important for us, including that on our website, on all of our marquees that might be publicizing the event outside of our venues, and including in print programs and more. And finally, I think it's been important for us as we think broadly to prepare by also producing Braille and large print programs as part of what we do in addition to audio described performances. In terms of key takeaways, I can't, because of my screen, I can't see Veronica, but I'd like to welcome Veronica back for this part. We've learned a lot over the past 2 seasons, and I'm just going to highlight 2 things and then pass it over to Veronica. But the first is I really do believe that audio description is within reach. This is something that can be done. We recognize that budgetarily, the lift is not too great. And from a technology standpoint, digitally, we think that this is something that the lift isn't too great. You'll soon learn about Live Voice, and Live Voice is a free mobile app that we are using for in-person performances, and that's just further allowed us to be able to plan for this and to incorporate it into our practice. And I guess the second bullet for me is that audio description really is a deeply inclusive practice, because for me, it's caused me to slow down and to pay attention to the detail. I found that this work extends far beyond creating an accessible experience for people who are blind or low vision. This practice leads to greater gains when it comes to access inclusion. For example, in the details, as I prepare to meet with Nicole about a production, I realized that I never asked how our artists like to be identified, and we don't share that across the company. This includes gender pronouns and racial identity. And I think it's so important to have that information as we prepare to welcome these artists to Philadelphia. So I think that while we're focusing in one way, it's increased our opportunity to see what else we can do to be inclusive.
And kind of coupling off of that, making sure that we're being intentional about our inclusion and that this work is cross-departmental. So it not only affects the marketing and the artistic space, but also the community initiative space. It is a whole organization endeavor. We also think that developing a longer runway for yourself is important. Incorporating audio descriptions into your planning process from the very beginning or as soon as possible is really important. It needs to become part of the institutional kind of muscle memory. This might mean adding a few months to a project timeline. For the digital content, we want to offer audio descriptions on the same date that the film is going to be released and not 2 months later. We're still working on that aspect, but it's really important for us to have both the film without audio descriptions and the film with audio descriptions to be released on the same day. And then we also hold a space for that it will never be perfect, and we recognize we have a lot of work to do. But that does not keep us from doing the work. On this next slide, our emails are displayed alongside a picture of a packed live audience watching opera in Philadelphia's Academy of Music. The words on the left-hand side say, to read more about audio descriptions at Opera Philadelphia, we invite you to visit our website at operaphila.org/AD. You can always email myself, Veronica Chapman Smith, at chapman-smith@operaphila.org, or my colleague Stephen Humes at humes@operaphila.org. We would love to be in conversation with any of you as we continue on our accessibility journey. As a reminder, our next in-person audio described performance will be at the Academy of Music for Verdi's Rigoletto on Friday, May 6th at 8 p.m. I'm going to get the time right. 8 p.m.
And last but not least, we invite you to experience the Opera Philadelphia channel. And pictured here is a remote control pointing towards a home television that displays the Opera Philadelphia channel image with various color bars on the television. Using the code CAFE, C-A-F-E, we're pleased to extend a free 3-month trial to the channel. And this promotion can be directly accessed using the hyperlink bit.ly/accesscafe. or you can call myself at Stephen Humes at 215-893-5903. So thank you all for this opportunity to highlight some of this work. And Nicole has been so influential in what we have been able to achieve together. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen and Veronica. That was just a great showing of how much it takes to get where we need to be when it comes to accessibility. So thank you. Next up, you've been hearing about this app called Live Voice, which has just been a godsend over here at Outreach. So I'd love to welcome to the Zoom screen Johan Wiegand, who's joining us from Europe. And Johan, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here with you. Let me share my screen first, and then I'll start. All right. I hope you can see that. Okay, just let me know if not. Sounds good. So yeah, my name is Johannes Wiegand, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Live Voice. I'm sitting here in beautiful Salzburg in Austria. It's already night. And yeah, that's where our headquarters are. So I first apologize for my English, since my mother tongue is German, not English. I'm a white man with short brown hair, wearing a dark blue sweater, pronounced as he, him. Yeah, I'm really excited that we've been invited to join this event, because what you guys at Outreach are doing is so close to the heart of what we created Live Voice for. When we started Live Voice, the guiding idea was to democratize live audio transmission, making it accessible to everyone, everywhere, anytime. That's also our vision. A live event audio made accessible for everyone, anywhere, anytime. Using Live Voice to offer audio description, to provide access to culture events for everyone is such a great thing, and we are very excited Live Voice can play a vital part in that. But I guess I should now explain first to everyone what Live Voice actually is and does. Basically, Live Voice turns smartphones and computers into a flexible audio transmission system, and it can be used for various use cases: for simultaneous interpretation, for silent stages, or for guided tours, and for audio description. So we created Live Voice because we realized that traditional analog systems, these little gray boxes that either from audio description when you experience it already, or from guided tours or language interpretation, these systems are very expensive. And they are also not really made for our connected digital world today. We had a need for language interpretation actually in our church in Austria, where we often had guests from the United States, here in Europe. And we wanted to purchase an interpreting system. Then we realized we would have to spend thousands of euros or dollars for that. So the solution was, we realized we have already everything we need in our pocket. So that's why we then developed Live Voice. And you see here a picture of the Live Voice app in action. That's how it looks like for someone who speaks into Live Voice, like Nicole, for example, when she uses that. Live Voice works with any smartphone or also computers. So you have one device to speak into as the sender, and any number of selected people can then listen with their own devices. The listeners receive a code or a link, and with that they can log in. It's quite similar to what you know from Zoom and these kind of services. There's also more options like QR code, or you can log in with a geolocation system. So there are different ways, but it's very simple, similar to Zoom or so. Basically, LiveVoice works in 3 steps. There's the admin. It can be, for example, the event location or the audio describer, whoever sets up the event and books the plan. Then the second one is the audio describer himself. He uses a smartphone or a computer to speak. And then the third one are the listeners, obviously. They simply download the app and log in and listen. So it's just an admin who organizes it all, the audio describer, and the listeners. The whole solution works via the cloud. So all you need is some form of internet connection. It can be Wi-Fi, but it can also be mobile internet. Therefore, it's the ideal solution not only for on-site events, but also for online and hybrid events. Nicole used LiveVoice already for different occasions, as she also mentioned. So, for example, that flower show, the pictures you already saw, and that's a great case where it's outside. You can simply use your mobile data. You can use it anywhere. Then I'm excited that it has been used already at the Opera Philadelphia. And yeah, we've heard of how you guys used audio description in great ways already. And then there's also other similar organizations all over the world, like, for example, Access Path Productions in Singapore. They've used LiveVoice for audio description as well. But just to give you a little bit of a wider horizon, LiveVoice can also be used for different other use cases, as I mentioned. So, for example, language interpretation, as here with the remote interpretation, which means that interpreters don't have to travel. They can interpret from home, which again then reduces carbon footprint and saves a lot of cost. Or another case where LiveVoice is in use are the Jewish Holland tours in New York. So tour guides are using it, LiveVoice there. These are just a few examples. So what is special about LiveVoice? There are 3 points for us. First one is LiveVoice is affordable for everyone. As I mentioned at the beginning, that's part of our vision. It should be really affordable for everyone, so everyone can use it. LiveVoice works as a software, as a software service, and so it requires no special hardware. You can simply use your normal smartphone, and so that's why we can offer very low prices. As an event organizer or audio describer, you can easily book your packages yourself. It's all in the self-service mode. So, and as Steve mentioned already, for listeners, it's for free. The second thing is it's completely flexible. You can have as many listeners as you need, basically anywhere in the world. You can create as many events and audio channels as you want as the admin, and you can just customize it to your needs. And as I mentioned, you can really manage it by yourself. So it's very flexible in this way too. And finally, it's really, really simple. We created LiveVoice so everyone can understand it, and everyone is able to use it. Because of course otherwise and this kind of service would not make sense. So it's very simple interface. And also for the organizers, it's simple because the listeners, they bring their own devices, their own phones, which means you don't have to hand out devices, you don't have to collect them, you don't have to repair them, and so on. And especially nowadays, important, it's a hygienic solution. Everyone brings his own headphones. LiveVoice is available globally. So same here in Europe or in the States. We have already customers just around the globe on all 5 continents, and a lot of people in the US are already using it. We are also serving big events, like Formula One, Red Bull Racing Lab in Austria, or the Allianz Arena in Munich, Germany, where the famous soccer team Bayern München is playing. At least that's famous in Europe. Not sure how famous it's in America with soccer not being the biggest sport. But anyways, so there are big players who need that kind of service, because in Europe, at least, not sure how it is in the States, but in Europe, it's often mandatory for big events to offer audio description. But small organizations often do not have that option because they cannot afford an expensive system. So we are very glad we can offer live voice to them, not just to big locations or big organizations, but to really anyone. As I said at the beginning, our vision is live event audio made accessible for everyone, anywhere, anytime. And so we are very glad we can play some role in your effort by offering a flexible solution that anyone can use. If you have any further questions, we can discuss them, of course, later here, and please feel free to reach out to me. You can simply go to our website, livevoice.io, or also just write me at hello@livevoice.io. I'm very happy if you get in contact with me and I can answer any questions there if you have them. Yeah, so this is a short introduction of Live Voice and what it does.
Wonderful. Johan, thank you so much. And especially thank you for joining us late at night. I'm sure you're probably ready for bed, so we're getting close to it. Okay, thank you. That's a live voice honestly has changed a lot for us, so thank you. Everything that you say, I can officially put like a stamp of approval from Outreach One, so thank you. We're gonna do question and answer. We have about 9 minutes. The first thing that I want to do though is our friend Diane Nutting from down near DC asked a great question about what happens if a patron shows up and doesn't have a personal device. They don't have a smartphone, right? So Outreach has iPads that are fully charged and that we let arts partners borrow, and they have the live voice already downloaded and ready to go. And we also have disposable of the earphones, the earplugs. We have those like that you would see on an airplane if you were traveling and they pass out if you're taking an international flight. We have those as well. We just hand them and we let people keep them because we would never want the use of live voice to be prohibited by somebody not having a smartphone. So Diane, thank you as always for asking awesome questions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to answer Beth's question, which says, I'm a describer, also a musician. I understand working within the cadences of the music and dialogue, but so many operas have very little or no space to describe as opposed to this example. And in opera, the describer needs to work with the Italian-English translation. Please discuss this. Nicole, do you mind popping over and at least giving us a quick answer to that, and maybe we can connect you to Beth so that you two can have a larger conversation offline, if that's okay. Thanks, dear one.
Yes, and Stephen, please feel free to make your video on and join. But this is really La Traviata, so which is in French, but I think the same applies. What we did for this particular opera was deeply collaborative. So Stephen provided a summary of more or less each song in Excel, translations of the names of the songs, and overall like general information about what the opera was about. Whenever possible, I like to describe the translations as close in time to when they occur, but that doesn't always happen. So trying to distill down what was really the summary of that translation, what it really meant, and then describing that. But because that wasn't always possible, what we did was provide pre-show notes that summarized the plot of the opera. And this was, we did it this way as a result of direct feedback from one of our consultants who said that he wanted kind of a summary in the beginning and then the audio description to kind of act like a bookmark of moving the story along and where that was. And so Stephen put together, when he put together the actual video file, it was pre-show notes, which included sets, costumes, summaries, then the description that had like those bookmarks along the way.
Yeah, and we really took advantage of there being acts. So before Act 2, another audio file of pre-show notes. I really hear your question, Elizabeth, and I think it goes back to the preparation and what's really possible within the scope of each individual piece.
Totally.
I'll also say that back to Diane's question, Opera Philadelphia recognized this too, and we purchased a number of audio adapters and headphones so that we would have those available if a guest needed something. We also recognized that headphones are different. Some take audio jacks, and some are just need the adapter. And so we've have a number of those, a few of those at our events in the event that somebody needs that to access the Live Voice app from their device.
Great. Thanks for that, Stephen. But we're learning, right? As we go along, we learn what we need to do, and we are responsive. But we're not perfect, which Veronica sort of leaned into, that we are always learning, and which I think is sort of the beauty of the partnerships, right?
Maybe one thing I can add.
Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Sorry, just one thing I can add to the question with like having devices and these things, and it's great that you provide them. And what's in our experience was very helpful is to communicate ahead of the event. Doesn't matter what type of event, if it's about audio description or the same thing with interpretation, language interpretation. Depending on the event, sometimes you would have even email addresses of attendees before where you send out information, then it's very helpful to let them know in advance. People can even already download the app and charge their phones, bring them with them. So that's very helpful too.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Johan. Thank you. Our friend Elizabeth Ralston has a few questions, and I think it's great to note them. She very bluntly just asked about, like, what if an arts organization that we're trying to introduce audio description to is worried that no one will come, so how do we sort of reassure them, and how do we make sure that they feel like this investment is worth it? Our reach is very, very, very honest when we start off this journey that this is a slow process. If you just think that we're suddenly going to give audio description and there's going to be 25 people in the audience using it the first time you do it, it's so unrealistic, right? So we just tell them, if one person uses your audio description the first show, that's a win, right? Because then we can also connect Nicole to that person and say, what did you think? Give us a little bit of feedback. With us, with our reach, we manage the partnerships in so many ways until we sort of hand it off to the arts partner. So with Opera Philadelphia specifically, we have the relationship with Associated Services for the Blind. We have a relationship with Overbrook School for the Blind, and also just blind and low vision folks who are just single people that are not connected necessarily to an organization. We're constantly marketing these, so anytime that our reach is involved in an accessible venture of any kind with an arts partner, we also help with the marketing. But we really tell them this is going to take 2 or 3 years to build the actual base, this audience of audio described users that are going to become faithful, ticket buyers to your organization's offerings. So we just try to be really, 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 really blunt and upfront about that. And I think Stephen is typing the answer back, which is great because he can elaborate on that. Just noticing we have 1 minute left. How many hours go into preparing and presenting the description for a typical production? $600 per production gives me concerns about sustainably attracting and retaining AD staff. Scott, I'm going to ask if maybe we can grab your email and get that over to Veronica, Stephen, and Nicole, because I think that they're going to have more answers about that. That I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So if that's okay, Scott, just throw your email into the chat, and one of us will grab it, and we'll definitely get you connected. I'm going to throw up our last slide for today. Sorry, and make sure that everybody can see about our next cafe session, which is coming up in March. So just give me a second. I apologize. And there we go. So we really do appreciate you attending with us. I want to thank Johan, Nicole, Stephen, and Veronica for being willing to take an hour and a half out of their very busy professional schedules to share this out. As you can tell, they come to it with a great amount of passion, which we're super excited about because it makes it easy when other people are passionate about our work. And super important topic coming up for our cafe session in March, on March 23rd, which is a Wednesday, from 11 to 12:30. We're doing Meet the Funders. Everybody always asks, how do we pay for audio description? How do we pay for ASL interpretation? How do we pay for sensory-friendly experiences? We're going to be actually talking to funders who care about this. And this is just an important discussion. It's not the funnest topic in the world, but it definitely is super important. So please, 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 when you get the email from us, register for that super important session. And without further ado, I think I am going to say goodbye to everybody. If everybody that participated could just like unmute themselves, say goodbye, give us a good wave, and we will end the session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
It was a pleasure. Have a nice day.